It was a super cold winter afternoon in a little town surrounded by big, snowy hills. The snow was so deep it almost swallowed up the houses, and the wind whistled through the trees like it was singing a spooky song. 9-year-old Lily Parker was walking home from school, her boots making loud crunch-crunch sounds in the snow. She was a small girl, quiet as a mouse, and always wore her old red coat that was a little faded from being washed so many times. Most people didn't notice her. The other kids at school didn't talk to her much, they were too busy playing or laughing with their friends. And the grown-ups? They'd just give her a quick smile and keep going, like she was invisible. Lily was used to it. She didn't mind being alone most of the time. But today felt different. Something strange was about to happen, and it was going to change everything. Lily's school wasn't far from her house, but the walk always felt long in the winter. The snow made her legs tired, and her backpack bounced on her back with every step. She pulled her coat tighter around her because the cold was sneaking in through the sleeves. Her nose was red, and her breath came out in little white puffs, like tiny clouds floating away. She kept her head down, watching her boots sink into the snow, one step at a time. The town was quiet, everyone was inside staying warm, probably drinking hot chocolate or sitting by a fire. Lily liked imagining that. It made her feel cozy, even if she was still outside in the freezing air. She turned the corner onto a street she walked down every day. It was the street with Old Man Grayson's house. Everyone in town knew about that house. It was old and falling apart, with chipped paint and a crooked porch that looked like it might collapse any second. The windows were always dark, and the curtains never moved. Kids at school said it was haunted. They told stories about ghosts and monsters hiding inside. Some even said Old Man Grayson was a mean old grump who hated everyone, especially kids. He never came outside much, but when he did, he'd glare at anyone who got too close. Lily didn't know if the stories were true, but she always walked a little faster when she passed his place. It gave her the creeps. But this time, as she turned that corner, something made her stop dead in her tracks. Her boots sank into the snow, and she stood there, staring. Right in the middle of Old Man Grayson's snowy yard was a dog, a big German Shepherd. Its fur was thick and fluffy, black and tan like a picture in one of Lily's animal books. It was beautiful, but there was something weird about it. The dog wasn't moving. Not even a little bit. It didn't wag its tail or shake off the snow that was piling up on its back. It just stood there, still as a rock, like someone had carved it out of ice and left it in the yard. Lily's eyes got wide. She blinked hard, thinking maybe her eyes were playing tricks on her. Was it a real dog? Or was it a statue? She couldn't tell. The snow kept falling, little flakes landing on her coat and sticking to her eyelashes. She squinted to get a better look. The German Shepherd's eyes were open, bright and shiny, staring right at her. But it didn't bark or run around like a normal dog would. It didn't even twitch its ears. Lily's tummy did a little flip. She'd seen lots of dogs before, happy ones that chased balls, sleepy ones that napped in the sun, but never one like this. It was so quiet, so still, it almost didn't seem real. The wind blew harder, making the snow swirl around the dog, but it didn't move an inch. Lily felt a shiver go down her spine, and it wasn't just from the cold. She took a tiny step closer, her boots crunching louder in the silence. "Hello," she said softly, her voice shaking a little. She wasn't sure why she said it. Dogs don't talk back, right? But something about this one made her feel like it could hear her. The German Shepherd didn't answer, of course. It just kept staring at her with those big, glowing eyes. Lily's heart started beating faster. She looked around the street to see if anyone else was there, but it was empty. No kids, no cars, no grown-ups. Just her, the snow, and this strange, frozen dog. Lily loved animals. She had a little goldfish at home named Bubbles, and she always stopped to pet the neighbor's cat when it sat on the fence. But this dog was different. It didn't look friendly or scared or anything. It just watched her. She wondered if it belonged to Old Man Grayson. Maybe he got a new pet and forgot to bring it inside. But why would it stand so still? Was it sick? Was it stuck? Her brain buzzed with questions, and she didn't know what to do. The house behind the dog looked even creepier now. The dark windows stared down at her like eyes, and the cracked front door swayed a tiny bit in the wind. Lily swallowed hard. She didn't want to get closer to that house. Everyone said to stay away. But the dog was right there, and she couldn't just walk past it like nothing was wrong. What if it needed help? What if it was waiting for someone to do something? Lily wasn't brave like the heroes in her favorite stories. She was just a quiet girl who liked drawing pictures and reading books. But something about this dog made her feel like she had to find out more. She stood there for a long time, snow piling up on her hat and shoulders. The German Shepherd didn't move, but its eyes stayed locked on her, like it was trying to tell her something. Lily's fingers tingled inside her mittens. She wanted to run home and hide under her blanket, but her feet wouldn't let her. She had to know what was going on. Was this dog real? Was it alive? And why was it standing in front of Old Man Grayson's spooky house, looking at her like that? Hey, what would you do if you saw a dog like that? Would you run away, or would you try to figure it out? Tell me in the comments, I really want to know. And while you're at it, say hi and tell me where you're watching from today. This story's just getting started, and trust me, you won't believe what happens next. Lily stood there in the snow, her boots stuck in the cold, white fluff. She took a tiny step closer to the German Shepherd, her heart thumping loud in her chest. Her breath came out in little puffs, like tiny clouds that floated up and disappeared in the chilly air. The dog didn't move, not even a little. Its eyes were big and bright, sharp like the edge of a shiny knife, staring right at her. It didn't blink. It didn't wiggle its nose. It just watched her, like it was waiting for something, maybe waiting for her. Lily's tummy felt all twisty, like when you're about to go down a big slide and you're not sure if it'll be fun or scary. She looked around quick, her head turning left and right. The street was super quiet, no kids running, no cars driving, no grown ups walking by. It was just her and the dog. The snow kept falling, soft and slow, covering everything in a big white blanket. Behind the German Shepherd stood Old Man Grayson's house. It was big and dark, like a giant shadow with a mean face. The windows were black, like they were hiding secrets, and the curtains were pulled tight so no one could peek inside. Lily didn't like that house. Nobody did. Old Man Grayson lived there all alone, and he never came outside, at least, not much. Everyone in town said he was grumpy and mean, the kind of guy who'd yell at kids just for stepping on his grass. Some kids even said he'd chase you with a broom if you got too close. Lily wasn't sure if that was true, but she didn't want to find out. "Hey, pup," she whispered, her voice so soft it almost got lost in the wind. It came out shaky, like her knees felt. "You okay?" She waited, hoping the dog would do something, maybe bark or wag its tail or even run over to sniff her mittens. But it didn't. The German Shepherd just stood there, still as a rock. Then, something weird happened. It turned its head slow, looking at the house, then turned back to stare at her again. Lily's eyes got big. Her tummy flipped upside down, like she'd just eaten a whole pile of bouncy jelly beans. It was almost like the dog was telling her something. Like it was saying, "Come with me. Follow me to the house." But that couldn't be right. Dogs don't talk, do they? Lily shook her head a little, trying to make her brain stop spinning. She didn't want to go near Old Man Grayson's place. No way. Everyone knew you stayed away from there. The kids at school had tons of stories about it. They said it was haunted, full of ghosts that floated around at night, making creepy noises. Some said they heard moans coming from inside when the moon was out. Others said Old Man Grayson kept spooky things in there, like old bones or jars of weird stuff. The grown-ups didn't talk about ghosts, but they said worse things. They'd whisper about how Grayson didn't like people, how he'd snap at anyone who knocked on his door. One time, Lily's neighbor Mrs. Jenkins said he threw a shoe at a mailman just for ringing the bell. Lily didn't know what to believe, but all those stories made her tummy feel even more wobbly. She looked at the dog again. Its fur was thick and fluffy, black and tan like a cozy blanket, but it still didn't move. The snow was piling up on its back, making little white hills, but the dog didn't shake it off. Normal dogs would shake and run around, right? This one didn't. It just kept staring at her with those big, shiny eyes. Lily bit her lip. There was something about those eyes, something special. They weren't mean or scary. They were different. Like they knew something she didn't. Like they were asking her to do something big, something important. Lily wasn't sure what, but she couldn't stop looking at them. It was like the dog was pulling her closer without even moving. She took another tiny step, her boot crunching loud in the snow. The house loomed bigger now, its dark windows watching her back. She could feel her heart going thump thump thump, faster and faster. She didn't want to get closer to that creepy place, but the dog's eyes wouldn't let her go. What if it needed help? What if it was stuck out here in the cold? Lily loved animals. She always stopped to pet cats or watch squirrels in the park. Maybe this dog was waiting for someone nice to come along. Maybe it picked her. But then she remembered the stories. What if Old Man Grayson was inside, watching her right now? What if he came out yelling, his face all red and mad? What if the house really was haunted, and something spooky grabbed her if she got too close? Lily's hands got sweaty inside her mittens. She wasn't brave like the kids in her adventure books. Those kids fought dragons and climbed mountains. She was just Lily, small, quiet Lily who liked drawing pictures of flowers and fish. She didn't know how to be brave. But the dog kept looking at her, and she couldn't shake that feeling like she had to do something. The wind blew harder, whistling past her ears and making the snow dance around her. She pulled her coat tighter, her fingers shaking a little. The German Shepherd turned its head again, looking at the house, then back at her. It was so quiet, so still, but its eyes were loud like they were shouting without making a sound. Lily's tummy twisted tighter. She didn't know what to do. Run home? Stay here? Get closer? Every choice felt big and scary. She glanced at the house again. The front door was cracked open just a tiny bit, swaying in the wind. That made it worse. Why was it open? Was something or someone waiting inside? Lily took a deep breath, her chest puffing out, then letting go with a big puff of white air. She wanted to know what was going on with this dog, but she didn't want to get in trouble. She wanted to help, but she didn't want to be scared. The German Shepherd didn't move, didn't bark, didn't do anything but watch her. It was like a puzzle she couldn't figure out. And those eyes, they made her feel like she couldn't just walk away. Not yet. So she stood there, snow falling all around, her boots sinking deeper. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing: this wasn't just a normal day anymore. Something big was coming, and it all started with that strange, frozen dog. Lily stood in the snowy yard, her boots stuck in the cold, white fluff. She inched closer to the German Shepherd, moving slow like a turtle. Her boots made a loud crunch-crunch sound with every tiny step, and the noise felt big in the quiet air. The dog didn't move at all. It just stood there, still as a tree, watching her with those bright, shiny eyes. Lily's tummy felt all jumpy, like popcorn popping inside her. She stopped when she was just a few feet away, close enough to see the snow piling up on the dog's fluffy black and tan fur. It looked so soft, but she didn't dare touch it, not yet. Then, something happened. The German Shepherd suddenly took one step toward the house. Just one. Its paw sank into the snow, and then it stopped. It turned its head and looked back at her, those big eyes locked on her face. Lily's heart started racing fast, like it was running a race inside her chest. She could feel it going thump thump thump, so loud she thought the dog might hear it too. "You want me to go in there?" she squeaked, her voice small and shaky, like a mouse talking. She pointed at the house with a mitten, her hand trembling a little. The German Shepherd tilted its head to one side, just a bit. It didn't bark or wag its tail, but that tilt, it was like it was saying, "Yes, come on." Lily gulped hard, her throat feeling tight. She wasn't brave like the kids in her favorite books. Those kids fought pirates and climbed tall trees without being scared. She was just Lily. Quiet Lily who liked petting cats and drawing pictures of the sun. She didn't know how to do big, scary things. But the dog didn't care. It stayed right there, waiting for her, like it knew something she didn't. Like it had a secret it wanted to share. Lily looked at the house again. It was big and dark, sitting there like a grumpy giant. The front door was cracked open, just a tiny bit, not wide, but enough to let a sliver of shadowy light spill out onto the porch. The light was dim and gray, not warm like the lights in her house. It made the house look even creepier, like it was hiding something inside. Lily's tummy did another flip. She didn't want to go near that place. Everyone said Old Man Grayson's house was bad news. Kids at school said ghosts lived there. Grown-ups said he was mean and didn't like visitors. But the dog kept looking at her, and she couldn't shake that feeling like she had to find out what was going on. Then she heard it. A sound. It was faint, so soft she almost missed it, but it was there, a little whimper, like a puppy crying or someone sad. It came from inside the house, slipping out through that cracked open door. Lily's eyes got wide. Her heart beat even faster. Was someone hurt in there? Was it a person? Or something else? She listened hard, holding her breath so she could hear better. The whimper came again, small and weak, like whatever was making it needed help. Lily's head spun with questions. What was it? Why was it in Old Man Grayson's house? And why was this weird, still dog trying to get her to go inside? She took another tiny step closer, her boots crunching again. The German Shepherd watched her, its head still tilted. It didn't move its body, just its eyes, following her every move. Lily's mittens felt sweaty now, even though the air was freezing. She wanted to help whatever was whimpering, but she was scared. What if Old Man Grayson was in there? What if he yelled at her? What if the house really was haunted, and something spooky grabbed her? She didn't know what to do, but she couldn't just walk away, not with that sound tugging at her heart. The snow kept falling, landing on her hat and sticking to her coat. The wind blew a little, making the door creak and sway just a tiny bit more. That made the whimper sound louder for a second, then it faded again. Lily looked at the dog. What's in there? She whispered, like it could answer her. Of course, it didn't. It just stared, waiting. She wondered if it could hear the whimper too. Maybe that's why it was here. Maybe it wanted her to find out what it was. Lily's legs felt wobbly, like they might give up and run her back home. But her eyes stayed on the house. That sliver of light from the door looked like a little path, leading into the dark. She imagined all kinds of things hiding inside, ghosts, monsters, or maybe just Old Man Grayson with his grumpy face. But the whimper made her think of something smaller, something that needed her. She loved animals. What if it was a puppy or a kitten stuck in there? She couldn't leave it, could she? She took one more step, closer to the dog now. It was so still, like a statue made of fur and snow. She could see its eyes better, big and deep, like they held a story she didn't know yet. The German Shepherd turned its head again, looking at the house, then back at her. It was like it was saying, "Come on, you can do it." Lily shook her head a little. "I'm not brave," she said under her breath. But the dog didn't care. It kept waiting, like it believed she could be brave, even if she didn't. The whimper came again, softer this time, but it hit Lily right in the chest. She had to know what it was. She had to find out. She looked at the house, then at the dog, then back at the house. Her heart was racing so fast she could hear it in her ears. She didn't want to go inside, not really, but something was pulling her closer. Was it the dog? Was it the sound? Or was it something else, something she couldn't see yet? Lily stood there, snow all around her, her boots sinking deeper. The German Shepherd didn't move, but its eyes stayed on her, bright and steady. She didn't know what was waiting inside that house, but she knew one thing: she was getting closer to finding out. Step by step, she was walking into something big, something she couldn't turn back from now. Hey, what do you think was making that sound? Was it a puppy? A person? Something spooky? Guess in the comments, I'll tell you soon. And tell me if you'd be brave enough to follow that dog. I can't wait to hear what you think. Lily stood at the edge of the porch, her boots crunching the snow one last time. She took a deep breath, puffing out a big cloud of white air. Her tummy felt all wobbly, but she couldn't stop now. She tiptoed up the creaky porch steps, slow and careful, like she was sneaking past a sleeping cat. The German Shepherd stayed right beside her, its big paws silent on the wood. The steps squeaked and groaned under her feet, loud in the quiet air. Lily's hand shook like a leaf as she reached for the door. It was cracked open just a little, and she pushed it with her mitten. The door made a long, low groan, like it hadn't moved in 100 years. It swung open slow, showing her the dark inside. The air hit her face, cold, dusty, and old. It smelled like forgotten things, like books nobody read anymore. Lily stepped inside, her boots tapping on the hard floor. The whimpering sound got louder now, bouncing off the walls. It was coming from somewhere deeper in the house. The German Shepherd nudged her with its nose, soft but firm, like it was saying, keep going. Lily's heart beat fast, so fast she could feel it in her ears. She walked past broken stuffed chairs with missing legs, a table tipped over, and cobwebs hanging like spooky curtains. The dog stayed close, guiding her through the mess. Then she saw it. In the corner of the living room, curled up in a pile of dirty blankets, was a tiny puppy. It was so small, smaller than her goldfish bowl at home. Its fur was all messy and matted, sticking together in clumps. The little thing was shivering hard, shaking like it was super cold. Lily gasped, her breath catching in her throat. "You're all alone," she said, her voice loud in the quiet room. She rushed over, her boots thumping fast. She dropped to her knees next to the puppy and scooped it up in her arms. It was so light, like a fluffy toy, but it felt real warm and soft under all that mess. The puppy whimpered again, a tiny sound that made Lily's heart squeeze tight. But that wasn't the end. Something happened behind her. The German Shepherd let out a low growl, deep and rumbly, like thunder far away. Lily spun around quick, still holding the puppy. There, standing in the doorway, was Old Man Grayson. His face was red, like he'd been out in the cold too long, and his eyes were narrow, squinting at her like she'd done something bad. He was big, taller than her dad, with a scruffy beard and a frown that made him look mean. "What are you doing in my house, kid?" he snapped, his voice sharp and loud. He took a step closer, his boots thumping heavy on the floor. Lily froze. Her whole body went stiff, like she'd turned into ice. She clutched the puppy tighter, its little body shaking against her chest. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Old Man Grayson looked mad, really mad. His hands were balled into fists, and his glare made her feel small, like a bug he could squash. She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Her throat was dry, and her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might jump out. But the German Shepherd didn't freeze. It moved fast, stepping right between Lily and Old Man Grayson. Its big body blocked her, like a wall made of fur. The dog bared its teeth, showing sharp white fangs that gleamed in the dim light. It growled again, louder this time, a sound that made the air shake. Grayson stopped walking. His eyes got wide, and he took a tiny step back. Lily stared at the dog, her mouth open. It was protecting her. But then she noticed something crazy, something that made her head spin. The German Shepherd wasn't breathing. Not at all. In the freezing room, her breath came out in little puffs, and so did Grayson's. But the dog? Nothing. No clouds of air came from its mouth or nose, even though it was growling and moving. Lily blinked hard, trying to make sense of it. Dogs breathe, right? All animals do. But this one didn't. It couldn't be alive, it just couldn't. Her tummy flipped upside down, and her hands shook even more. Was it a ghost? A ghost dog? She'd heard stories about ghosts, but she never thought they could be real. I came to help the puppy," Lily stammered, her voice wobbly and small. She held up the little bundle in her arms, showing it to Grayson. The puppy whimpered again, snuggling closer to her coat. Lily's eyes darted from the dog to Grayson, then back again. She didn't know what to say. She didn't want him to yell at her, but she couldn't leave the puppy behind. Grayson stared at her, his red face still mad but different now. His eyes softened, just for a second, like a cloud moving away from the sun. He looked at the German Shepherd, then at the puppy, then back at Lily. "That mutt's been here since my old dog passed," he said, his voice rough and cracking, like it hurt to talk. He rubbed his scruffy beard with one hand, his frown getting smaller. "Keeps showing up out of nowhere. Guess it wanted me to find that little guy." Lily's mouth dropped open. She looked at the German Shepherd again. Its growl stopped, and it stood there, still and quiet, watching Grayson now. Did he mean, this big dog was his old pet? The one that died? And it came back? Her brain buzzed with questions, but she didn't know how to ask them. The puppy in her arms wiggled a little, and she held it tighter. The German Shepherd turned its head to her, its bright eyes soft now, like it was saying, "You did it." Grayson's shoulders slumped, like he was tired. He didn't look so mean anymore, just old and sad. Lily's heart slowed down a little. The room was still cold and dusty, but it didn't feel as scary now. The big dog wasn't growling, and Grayson wasn't yelling. She looked down at the puppy, its tiny nose pressing against her mitten. Maybe this was why the German Shepherd brought her here. Maybe it wasn't just a spooky dog, it was a helper. Lily didn't know what to think. A ghost dog? A lost puppy? Old Man Grayson not being so mean? It was all so wild, like a story from one of her books. But she was in it, right in the middle, holding a shivering little friend. She looked up at Grayson, then at the German Shepherd. Something big had just happened, and she was part of it. Lily stood there in the dusty room, her eyes big as she stared at the German Shepherd. A ghost dog. It sounded totally crazy, like something from a wild story book, but it made sense now. This big, fluffy dog wasn't alive, it couldn't be, but it had brought her here for a reason. She hugged the tiny puppy tighter against her chest. Its little body was warm, even through her mittens, and it wiggled a bit, making a soft yip. Lily looked down at it, then up at Old Man Grayson. She took a deep breath, puffing out a little cloud of air. "Can I take him home?" she asked. Her voice was small, but it didn't shake this time. It felt strong, like she meant it. Grayson's face scrunched up, all grumpy and red. He grumbled low, like a bear waking up, and crossed his arms. For a second, Lily thought he'd say no and yell at her to get out. But then he let out a big sigh, loud and tired. "Fine," he said, his voice gruff. "Take the little thing. But don't come snooping around here again, you hear?" He turned away, muttering stuff under his breath, things like darn kids and crazy dogs, as he shuffled back into the shadows of the house. Lily watched him go, her heart slowing down. He wasn't so mean after all, just cranky and sad. She looked at the German Shepherd again. It stood there, still as ever, its bright eyes soft now. Lily smiled a little. "Thanks," she whispered, even though she wasn't sure it could hear her. Then she turned and stepped outside, her boots crunching on the porch. The cold air hit her face, but it felt good after the dusty house. The snow was still falling, soft and quiet, covering the yard in white. The German Shepherd followed her, walking right beside her like a friend. She didn't hear its paws crunching, though it was too quiet for that. When they got to the edge of the yard, something amazing happened. The big dog stopped. Lily turned to look at it, and right before her eyes, it started to fade away. It didn't melt like ice or fly off like a bird, it just got softer and fainter, like snow disappearing in the sun. She blinked hard, rubbing her eyes with one mitten, but it was really happening. 1 second it was there, big and fluffy, and the next, it was gone. Nothing left but snowy air. Lily's mouth dropped open. The puppy yipped in her arms, a happy little sound, warm and alive against her coat. She stood there for a minute, snowflakes landing on her hat. The puppy snuggled closer, and Lily smiled a real, big smile. She wasn't scared anymore. She'd gone into the creepy house, faced Old Man Grayson, and saved this little guy. Maybe she wasn't just quiet Lily after all. Maybe she was brave, even if she didn't feel like it at first. She hugged the puppy tight and started walking home, her boots leaving little tracks in the snow. The day felt brighter now, even with all the clouds. She'd done something big, and it felt good. Lily walked home through the snowy town, her boots crunching with every step. The little puppy was snuggled tight in her arms, warm and safe inside her faded red coat. The snow sparkled all around her, twinkling like tiny stars under the gray sky. It was cold, but Lily didn't mind. Her heart felt warm, like she'd just drunk a big mug of hot chocolate. She looked down at the puppy, its tiny nose poking out, and smiled. She'd done something big today, something she never thought she could do. And now she had a new friend to take home. As she walked, Lily thought about everything that happened. The frozen German Shepherd, the creepy house, Old Man Grayson, all of it felt like a dream. But it wasn't. It was real, and she'd been part of it. She used to think she was just a quiet girl, the kind nobody noticed. She wasn't loud or fast or brave like the kids in her books. But today showed her something different. Sometimes, the bravest things happen when you don't expect them. You don't have to feel big or strong to do something amazing. You just have to try, even if you're scared. The snow kept falling, soft and light, covering her tracks behind her. Lily hugged the puppy closer. She wondered about that German Shepherd, the ghost dog. It picked her, out of everyone, to help the puppy. Why? Maybe it saw something in her that she didn't see herself. Maybe the ones who seem ordinary, the ones who don't talk a lot or run around, are the ones who can surprise you the most. Lily liked that idea. It made her feel special, even if she was still small and quiet. She looked up at the sky, the clouds all thick and gray. The town was quiet, but it didn't feel lonely anymore. She had the puppy now, and she'd been brave enough to save it. That was enough. She didn't need to be loud or big to matter. She just needed to be herself, Lily, the girl who followed a strange dog and found something wonderful. So, what about you? Would you have followed that frozen dog if you saw it standing there, still as a statue? Would you have gone into that spooky house, even if your tummy felt all wobbly? I want to know. Tell me in the comments what you'd do. And while you're at it, what would you name this little puppy? I bet you've got some fun ideas. I'd call it Snowball, because it's so tiny and white, but maybe you've got something even better. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild story. I had so much fun telling it to you. Lily's adventure is over for now, but don't worry, there's more to come. See you in the next story, friends. Keep being brave, even when you don't feel like it. You never know what amazing things might happen.